Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is the NW Sportscast, and today we're talking about who the Seahawks should consider drafting with their first round pick. Now I'm going to go through some players, and I'm going to tell you guys if I think the Seahawks would be beneficial to draft said player. Starting with tight end Brock Bowers. A lot of people think Brock Bowers could be available around the 16th pick. He's a blue chip prospect, one of the best tight ends in the NFL draft that has been there for a long time. You know, he's a higher rated tight end than guys like Kyle Pitts, than guys like Dalton Kincaid, than guys like Sam Laporta with the Lions. All those guys have had pretty solid NFL careers up to this point. Brock Bowers higher rated than all of them. Now, do I think the Seahawks would benefit from having Brock Bowers? I do. I think the Seahawks, I think their tight end core is a little bit weak right now. Obviously, Noah Fant and Pharaoh Brown are the guys you've got there, and I'm not a huge Pharaoh Brown believer. Noah Fant had a down year last year. He's getting, I wouldn't say he's getting older, but, he's a couple years removed from his best season with the Broncos. So I wouldn't be mad if the Seahawks did draft Brock Bowers. I think if he's there, it's very tempting to take him. However, there's a good chance that he will already have been drafted at that point. All right, so then we got Washington offensive tackle Troy Fautanu. I feel like Troy Fautanu is a really, really solid pick for the Seahawks. He's an offensive tackle. He can also play guard. He can play on the left side. He can play on the right side. He's been very good. Also a local guy, comes from Seattle. And the Seahawks, I feel like we need all the help we can get on that offensive line. I feel like every year there's always going to be injuries. Charles Cross and Abe Lucas have been solid, but they haven't been amazing. And the rest of that line is kind of a question mark. We've got dudes that are there who have contributed before, but nobody who really screams like Pro Bowl level talent. I feel like Troy Fautanu could be that. If he is available, it would be tough to say no. All right, and then we're going to look at Adonai Mitchell. He's the receiver that's most likely to be available for us, and honestly, I don't think we should draft a receiver. I feel like we just did that with Jackson Smith-Njigba, and do we need a fourth receiver? No, we don't really need that. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are still very good players. Maybe Lockett is not going to be as good next year, but he's still a productive player, and I think it would be kind of silly to draft another wide receiver. So I'm going to say no, I'll pass on Adonai Mitchell. All right, then we got some edge rushers. Jared Verse. Jared Verse is a really solid prospect. I think he did some really good things for Florida State, and I would be interested in drafting Jared Verse. I know the Seahawks just visited with him recently. I would be very interested in Jared Verse. I feel like he probably could be a top 10 level talent. Probably could be classified as a blue chip prospect if you want to say that. I just think having a good edge is super, super important. And we see that with the 49ers, with Nick Bosa. We see that with the Cowboys, with the way they play Micah Parsons. He's an outside linebacker, but he's basically an edge. We see that with the way that Myles Garrett with the Cleveland Browns, T.J. Watt on the Steelers. All these teams that have really good edge rushers and their defenses really benefit from that. I think the Seahawks could use one. We obviously have Leonard Williams on one side. Pair him up with Jared Verse. Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing. All right, and then if you don't want to go with Jared Verse as an edge, you have another opportunity if you would rather go with Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. Latu, maybe you can move down and select him. Definitely good player at UCLA, not as good, in my opinion at least, as Jared Verse is. But if you don't like Jared Verse, maybe you go with Laiatu Latu, or you could go with somebody like a Jerzon Newton out of Illinois, or potentially Chop Robinson out of Penn State. I think both of those guys I would rank a little bit lower, but if you want to trade down in the draft, you could still probably get Jerzon Newton or Chop Robinson, and I feel like, both of those guys are definitely able to provide that value. Not going to be as good, however, in my opinion, as Jared Verse. So if I was them, I wouldn't trade down. I'd take Jared Verse if he's there. But if you do want to trade down, you can get Chop Robinson or Jerzon Newton. All right, but then we have some cornerbacks to look at. How about Terrion Arnold out of Alabama? Well, he's a really good player. Obviously had an incredible season last year with Alabama. Really fast. He is definitely has potential to be one of the next elite cornerbacks in the league. Personally, though, I don't think we really need a cornerback. I think I like where, Riek Woolen, I know he maybe took a step back last season. He's still really young. He still has a lot of potential. Devin Witherspoon's great. And then you got guys like, obviously, Michael Jackson backing them up, guys like Trey Brown backing them up. I think that the Seahawks have a really nice cornerback class, so I don't think we really need Terrion Arnold. I would pass on a first-round cornerback. If you do want to take a cornerback, maybe later in the draft. Then there's Cooper DeJean, though. Cooper DeJean, also a cornerback, but he is a guy who could potentially also play safety. He's definitely a guy who could play all around the field. He had a really, really nice season in Iowa. And again, Cooper DeJean is a guy who maybe you can get him if you trade back 5 or 6 spots, and he might still be there. He kind of projected more to be a mid-20s pick than he is to be around the teens. So you could potentially grab Cooper DeJean with like the 25th pick if you want to trade down. And in that scenario, you could maybe play him around with moving him over to safety. And strong safety is a spot where the Seahawks could definitely upgrade over Trayshawn Jenkins at that position. All right, but then if you wanted to go with another position, we have defensive tackles. How about Byron Murphy out of Texas? Byron Murphy had a really nice season, obviously going to the college football playoffs with Texas. Defensive tackle, not necessarily my top position of choice. I do like some of the guys the Seahawks have down there at D tackle, and I don't think D tackle is as important as edge. I think edge is a little bit more important because you're getting more pressure on the quarterback. However, if you want to go get a defensive tackle, Byron Murphy, probably the best available that you are going to be able to get. I'm not sure really if, there's a chance he could get drafted ahead of where the Seahawks are, but obviously I don't think so. He's being mocked around 17, 18, so maybe he goes a little bit later, but there's not a whole lot of teams that really are going to be looking to draft a defensive tackle that high in the draft. And then, last but not least, we're going to look at Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon, the junior center out of Oregon. He's being mocked around the 15th to 25th pick. And I think Jackson Powers Johnson could be a really solid pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, we do need a center. We don't really have a clear-cut starting center right now, and that was definitely a hole for this team last year. If you want to go with another O-lineman, you can go with Graham Barton out of Duke, or you can maybe go look at J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Both of those guys, very good players. So is Amarius Mims from Georgia. So, there's definitely some good offensive linemen out there for a little bit lower in the draft. If you want to trade down a few spots, you can probably get any of these guys. But the difference between Barton and between Latham and Mims is that they are not centers, and I really do think having a nice center, having a really good center like Jackson Powers Johnson would be a good pick. So I'd be fine with Seattle drafting Jackson Powers Johnson if that's the direction they want to go. But also, if they want to go get the Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham, I feel like he has potential to be a really, really good offensive tackle as well. However, I would rate him below Jackson Powers Johnson and also below Troy Fautanu. So there you go, guys. I just gave you a bunch of players that I would be very okay with the Seahawks drafting in the first round. If we wanted to pick Brock Bowers, Fautano, if you want to go out and get Jared Verse, if you want to go out and get Byron Murphy II, if you want to go out and get Jackson Powers Johnson, Graham Barton, Cooper DeJean, Laitu Latu, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, or Jerzon Newton. That is 10 players. 10 players, guys, that I would be A-okay with the Seahawks drafting in the first round. And if that means trading back, then that means trading back. However, obviously, if there's some guys who are available, you have to take them, right? If for some reason Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama, if he somehow falls to 16, you have to take him there. I don't think that's even a question. If Olumuya, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. If Olumuyawa Fashanu, the guy out of Penn State, the offensive tackle, if he is still there at 16, you take him. If Joe Alt is still there, the Notre Dame offensive tackle, obviously massive, massive blue chip prospect. If he's still there, you have to take him. So yeah, there's a few guys who, if they somehow fall to 16, you have to take them. I would say those three are those three guys. I think there's three guys who maybe could fall that low. In a few mocks, I've seen them fall that low, and that would be Joe Alt, That would be Fashanu out of Penn State. That'd be Dallas Turner. If any of those 3 guys falls all the way down to 16, there's no question you have to take them. But if not, then I just listed, you got 10 guys who are probably going to be drafted around 16 to 26 range that I would be perfectly fine with the Seahawks drafting. But guys, let me know down in the comments, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Is there anybody that I'm missing? Anybody that I'm forgetting about? Anybody that I think that I like that you guys don't like? Also, guys, if you think a quarterback is the way to go, I'm just going to say this. I don't think necessarily you should draft a quarterback in the first round after you already traded for Sam Howell. You don't really need another backup quarterback at this point. I understand not being sold. If you're not sold on Howell, and if you're maybe not sold on Geno for the future, I get it. I'm right there with you. I don't think Howell is maybe going to be this great quarterback of our future. But, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to draft a quarterback in the first round when you already have 2 solid ones. Taking a flyer in the 5th or 6th round on a quarterback sounds great to me. And, you know, potentially if Geno struggles or if Sam Howell struggles, then I'm all for drafting a quarterback again in 2025. But right now, I feel like where you're at in 2024, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to draft a quarterback in the first round because you have a greater need to fill on the edge. You have a greater need to fill on the O-line. You have a greater need to fill at tight end, at safety. There's definitely some positions there where it would be a lot more important to fill them than at the quarterback position. So that's just my take, guys. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think? And as always, go Seahawks.